This is my video about my journey of how I did my FRCPath, how I cleared them, and how I came to know about a lot of things the hard way. So basically, before making this video, what I did was to keep myself in my, imagine somebody in my place where I was 3 years ago, where I had no idea about anything regarding FRCPath or moving to the UK or the GMC registration. So I just thought I will make a series of videos of how I cleared my FRCPath 1, FRCPath 2, and how to go about GMC registration, because these are the things that you will need if you are interested in working in the UK. I hope you find this useful, and let's begin. So this video would be relevant to you if your aim is to move to the UK or to get a consultant position in the NHS. Why I say that is because if this is your goal, then this video is going to help you, because that is what my goal was, and that is what my journey was about, and that is what I'm going to share with you. So if you're looking for other things, then it may not be very helpful to you. And this will also be relevant to you if you have completed your post-graduation, or even if you have not completed your post-graduation, you at least have 3 years of training in a specialty. Here I'm talking about pathology. So if you have completed 3 years of training in any country in pathology, or in India we call it a PG, post-graduation, DNB or MD, if you have done all those things, then it becomes more relevant to you and becomes more easier for you. So basically, if you try to compare, I mean, I am from India basically, so I would know how in India what happens is that we do MBBS and then we do 1 year of internship and then we do 3 years of post graduation. However, in the UK, it's a little different. What here happens here is that they do 2 years of foundation, which is equivalent to kind of our internship. Then they give their exams and then they do 5 years of their training, what we call as junior residency in India, and I'm sure must be the same, similar kind of terminology must be used in other countries as well. Basically, what we call it as a post graduation in our country is something called as a specialty training here, and that consists of 5 years. All right, and those people who give F1, F2, and then they do all these things, they give their exams of stage A1 and FRCPath, usually part 1 somewhere here, and FRCPath part 2 somewhere here. So this what this I never understood this when I was beginning to enter the system. I did not understand how this goes, okay, and where am I and what happens, what is what. I never understood these things, but now the thing is that this is what I want to explain, basically, that this foundation years is basically something which is kind of internship, and these are the basically the things which we is 3 years for us in India, which is called as junior residency, which is called ST1 here. So somebody who gives an exam of FRCPath 2 kind of becomes equivalent to ST4 or ST5. Okay, so even if somebody in the UK is doing something like this, going through all the stages, they may give their exam. This is an FRCPath 2 is an exit exam, of course, and they may still be the ST. Okay, so it's not like India where we complete all 3 years of our post graduation and then we give our exit exam. Here they give the exit exam while they are still doing the specialty training. Okay, I hope that makes it a little bit clear. Now beyond that, when you have completed all your ST5, or basically if you have completed your FRCPath, you may get a certificate of completion of training, that you have completed all the training and you get a certificate for that. Now the CCT is something which is very valuable, not only in the UK, but it is something which is valuable across the world, across the globe. And if you have this certificate, the certificate of completion of training, then you may be able to work anywhere in the world as a consultant. All right, but the problem with that is that if you have done all what I showed you, this entire thing, F1, F2, ST1, 2, 3, 4, 5, when only you have done each of these, I mean, you have done the entire training program in a UK or a GMC based or authorized center, maybe you can understand it that way, then you will get at the end of FRCPath 2 you get a CCT, right? But that might not be relevant to most of us, because we have done our specialty training or our junior residency basically in some other country, and now we have come to the UK and trying to give our FRCPath 2 and 1, of course. to just enter the system. So in that case, what happens is that when you give your FRCPath Part 2, you will be eligible for a certificate confirming eligibility for a specialist registration, which is CSR. Okay, so basically, if you are in the UK, it is going to be both are equivalent. It does not make a difference if you have a CCT or a CESR. But if you are planning to just give an FRCPath and maybe go somewhere else, or try to do a consultancy position in somewhere else, then in that case CCT is more valuable, not the CESR. I hope I make that point clear. The CCT requires that you do most of the training in the UK and then you get the CCT, right? The exam is exactly the same. FRCPath 2 is exactly the same. And if you are in UK, both of them are exactly the same. CCT and CSR doesn't make a difference for you in terms of your career. But if you want to go anywhere else with the certificate, then the CCT is more valuable, not the CESR, right? You may have to do their own. Say for example you want to shift to Canada or USA, then you might have to give their USMLE or something like that for their country, to work in their country. That's why when I started this video, I said that if you have an aim to work in the UK as a consultant, then this video is going to be more relevant to you, because then it doesn't make a difference and then we don't have to worry about that, right? Even if you did not do enter the training program as such in this country, in the GMC, even then you will be able to work here, right, with the CESR degree, right? But the CCT is something which is more valuable, but it requires a more it's more aggressive and rigorous training, and it has to be based like the most part of it has to be done in the UK. So some people, especially in the clinicians, they even though they do their JR in India, they do come here and they still want to do their CCT here rather than doing the CSR, because that's more valuable. So that depends on you exactly what you want. But most of us who have done our post-graduation in India in pathology, we would give our FRCPaths and then we will get our certificate confirming eligibility for specialist registration. That would be enough for you to get yourself registered in the GMC registration, right? So now, being an IMG in pathology, IMG is International Medical Graduate in pathology, maybe from a country where I belong, like India or maybe some other places. So once you clear your exams, part 1 and part 2, you become eligible for CSR. So this will be the easier, comparatively quick and relevant method for you to enter the GMC specialist register. So that will be basically your aim. If you have to work here, you want to get your name registered in the GMC register, right? So they have different kinds of register. The specialist register is say for example for like a equivalent of something which you would get in India after your post graduation. So you are a specialist in something, right? So for that, this will be the easier way to get do your part 1 and part 2 and you become eligible for CSR, and then you can get your GMC register, your name registered in the GMC specialist register. So that is a bit minimum to become a consultant here, right? But again, if you want to go out or you are not planning to stay in the UK forever, then or maybe you want to go to any other country or even back home, then it depends on what you want to do. That's why I began my lecture, my talk with the thing that if you are interested in working here, then this will be the most relevant to you. So the success in part 1 examination, that will be your first step, right? You want to clear your part 1 examination first, and with that what happens is that you can apply for a diplomat membership for the college, which I do not know what exactly its significance is. Maybe you can just have your a nominal, like a name, in your name you can have it written like a diplomat of Royal College. I have seen some people writing that, but I do not know exactly what significance does it give you. It certainly does not help you in the UK. So maybe back home, if you want to just write something in your name, then maybe FRCPath Part 1, after you clear that, you may have that, right? This is one requirement to sit in the FRCPath Part 2. So yes, you need to clear your Part 1 to give your Part 2. And of course, it is not a qualification in itself. So you give your Part 1, but that does not actually lead you anywhere. Okay, so you have to give your Part 2, right? FRCPath as such, this degree or this name, it can also be achieved through other ways, through publications and invitation of the council, which is basically completely irrelevant for us, for people who have done who are trainees basically, or who are recent postgraduates from other countries, right? It's not for us, it's for those people who are very learned or very have achieved a lot in their fields, and then the council invites them or gives them this degree, or maybe you have done a lot of publications and a lot of study and research. So this is not for us, right? So you may have alternate pathways to get the FRCPath degree, but that doesn't apply to us, right? I just thought of mentioning this because just like that. And also because this FRCPath through these ways will not again make you eligible for working here as a consultant, right? So you cannot have, actually the point from here is that you cannot have any shortcuts. You will have to go through all of them, and you will not have any shortcuts, right? um the next thing that I want to say is that when you do your part one and part two both, so you become an FRCPath, that again only doing an FRCPath again does not give you any right to do anything or any work unless you get registered with the GMC, right? So you have to get registered with the GMC if you want to work here. So basically your checklist will constitute of part one and then part two and then GMC registration, right? You have to clear all these one by one, and that is exactly what my video is about. What do they require from you, right? I will make separate videos again for how I cleared my part one and part two, what helped me, right? And of course about the registration as well. But this video will just give you an overview of things. And basically this is what you have to do. These will be, you have to make it, you have to get them tick tick tick, done done done, and in that order. So you get your part one done, and then you get your part two done, and then you get your GMC registration done, and then you're ready to go, right? So that is why I want to tell you before you begin, right? Because it's not going to be easy. It is going to cost you a lot of money. Be prepared for that, and it will take a lot of time. So you have to be prepared for that. You cannot not know that it is going to cost you money and time and effort, a lot of them. Okay, so you have to know that, and you have to know where you are, putting yourself in, right? So my advice is that you need to have a very strong motivation. Why do I say that? Because when you're going to spend so much money and when you're going to take so much time, there will be a time where you will say that you will lose the motivation. You will feel like giving up. You will feel like stopping. You will feel like losing all hope. And it happens a lot of time that people do not clear in one go. They have to give two attempts. So that is quite demotivating, and that is money and so many factors are attached to it. You need to know why you're doing this in the first place, right? And you need to write that down for yourself, and you need to keep whenever you feel low or you feel like you cannot go with this anymore, you have to refer to that note what you have written to yourself, and you have to keep yourself motivated at all times, right? Because maybe you have to, for some people it may just be a what do you call it, something which is not an option for them. This is something they have to do, right? They do not have any option. Like for me, I had to do this because I did not have any other option. So for them, that itself is a very strong motivation, because you do not have anything else to fall back on. But for people who are still in India or somewhere else, and they are just doing this as a side thing, they might lose the motivation, and there is no point stopping midway, right? If you're doing your part one, you have to give your part two and just finish it off, right? Everybody can do it. It is made for us, for pathologists who have those 3-4 years of experience, and we all can do it. It's not so difficult. I mean, it is difficult, but it is not impossible, right? But that's what I want to say, that to please have a very strong motivation for yourself. You will need it time and again. It's going to take a lot of time. It's not going to be a one day thing. It's going to be a long thing, and it's going to cost you a lot of money. I will discuss those things as well a little bit. And of course, the second advice is that you need to know everything in detail, right? So that is why I am making this video. That this should be just the beginning of your journey. This video should just be the beginning of your journey about finding out things. You will have to go and refer to a lot of material on the RCPath websites. What does the things mean, and the GMC registration, those things, and many other videos, things like that. You have to find out everything in detail. You have to know where you what you're going to do, yeah, what you are putting yourself into, right? So about the money, I just wanted to mention the exam fees and other expenses, which will be the minimum. Okay, this, it's not going to be less, but yes, it can get more. more than this. It is a costly affair, you need to know this. The part 1 exam is around £673. The part 2 exam is around £1,416. It has increased, right? It was 1,300 something last time. So yes, that's also a factor. So it increases. The GMC registration will cost you around 700 to 800. It depends on a lot of things, because they require a lot of things, a lot of documents, and each document depends on how many documents you have to submit to them, and that the cost might increase on that basis of that, right? The traveling costs, of course, because you will have to give your part 2 somewhere, right? If you, and for once you have to come to the UK, right? Even if you manage to skip part 1 and part 2, maybe you have a center at your home or town or anything, but for the GMC registration, once you get your registration, you have to travel to UK once, to for the verification of all your documents, right? So it is going to cost you a lot of money, right? And this is just the minimum I said, because it's going to increase on the basis of how many times you give the exam, how many times you travel, how many things you need for the GMC registration, how many courses you apply for. There will be a lot of things additional to it. This is just the minimum, and which comes to around £4,000, which is in Indian rupees, it is around 4 lakh rupees, right? So this will be the minimum amount that you will be spending on it, right? So you better have a very strong motivation, and you better have your finances sorted out. Now, what I will do is that I will just give you a little bit of the flavor of what part 1 and part 2 consists of, right? I will make detailed videos later on, but this will become too long if I put everything in together, right? So those exams are basically conducted by Royal College of Pathologists, right? And the exams are conducted in multiple specialities, but of course histopathology will be the favorite, and there are 17 specialties in which they conduct the exam, right? Including immunology and virology and microbiology and hematology, of course, and histopathology, of course. And there are many things, right? You can have more details about these in on their website. Yeah, histopathology is the one that I gave and I studied for, and of course my experience would be based completely on that. So again, multiple centers for the exams. There are multiple centers, and those will be based inside and outside UK. uh, Part 1 exam has more centers, right, and part 2 has less number of centers as such. In terms of outside UK, I mean, the countries in which the exams are conducted are more in for part 1 but less for part 2 comparatively. I gave my part 1 in India and part 2 in UK. Twice a year they take the exams, right? The exception was the pandemic, where they had to cancel and they had to change the dates and stuff, but usually it's one of the exams is in spring and the other one is in autumn. So the part 1 usually is earlier than part 2. So the part 1, you can expect that in March and September, and part 2 in April and October, right? So again, depending on the timing of the year, you might have to decide what time you can travel, what time you can study, what time things are easy for you. So these might come into your will come into these may be factors which you might have to consider. But those are basically, I just want to give you the things about the general knowledge about part 1 and part 2 exams, right? So do people pass these exams? Yes, they do, and there are quite a number of people who do. This will be the latest which they have on their website. That's autumn 2020, the results of that exam. This is for histopathology, where the overall pass rate, for histopathology part 1 exam, the overall pass rate was brilliant. It was 84%, right, for part 1 exam. So histopathology part 1 exam is something fairly doable. It is of course going to require your effort and your time and everything, but you should expect a good result, right? If you have given your everything to it, you should expect a good result, because normally part 1 is not that terrible, okay? The exam is not that difficult as compared to part 2, and the pass percentage is better, of course, than part 2. Sorry for that. Now part 2, this is also autumn 2020, and we have histopathology here. The pass rate is 53%. Now you will have to remember that this includes this particular exam took place only inside the UK, and there were no outside centers. But of course the candidates belonged to UK people, and also people from outside like me, who was not a UK candidate, right? So but I was in UK, so I could give the exam that time. And but the overall pass rate is of course bad. It's not good. It's 53% is like 1%, one in two, one every 1% in two people pass the exam, which is not that great, right? So you require more effort and more maybe time to prepare yourself for this exam, right? Attempts and time limits, you will get 4 attempts for each part. For example, you give your part 1, then you get a time gap of 7 years. So within that 7 years you have 4 attempts to clear your part 2, right? So that's how it goes. If in case somebody is not able to pass that in that particular time, you may apply for, you know, I don't know, you can apply for maybe, another attempt or something like that. There are some provisions, but I really hope for everybody that nobody should, have to give the exam more than 4 times. I really hope that nobody is in that position that they have to give the exam for more than 4 attempts. But that's what the limit and the time is. So once you clear your part 1, you have 7 years, which will include 2 exams every year. So that's around 14 times that you can give your part 2 examination, right? Now, part 1 exam overview, I just wanted to say that this is basically a theory exam, which is more like a knowledge-based exam, and it consists of MCQs, right? Multiple choice questions, 125 of them, and you have 3 hours to give this exam. Right, answers will be either in a best answer question type of format or an extended matching format question. Again, I'll be describing these more when I do the part 1 detailed version, but for now you just need to know that there are basically multiple choice questions and basically a theory exam, right? You just need you have to actually give answers to each question, and it's more like a theory thing, right? You just sit in the exam and you give your exam and you come out of the session after 3 hours. And of course it includes histopathology, cytopathology, autopsy practices, right, and general pathology as well. You do not require anything. What do I mean by that is that prerequisite for this exam is none, meaning if you have knowledge, that is sufficient, right? Because you will see for part 2 you will require a few things, but for part 1, if you have the knowledge of pathology, if you feel like you're ready to get this exam, you can take this exam, right? Part 2 comparatively takes place over 2 days. That was a 3-hour examination. This is a 2-day examination. It's very tiring, right? Very exhausting. It's a practical exam, of course, and it will include a lot of slides, a lot of writing reports, and those reports should be in the format that these people want to see, and not the way. It's not going to test your knowledge only, right? It's going to test a lot of other things as well. We will again do more of this in a detailed version later on. I'll make another video, but for now you just need to know that it's going to be including a lot of writing, a lot of interpreting things, right? A lot of slides, and the centers will be limited as compared to part 1. I already mentioned this. On a side note, I will just like to say that you will have to need to travel most probably for part 2 exam. You will have to have your passport ready for that. Yeah, that's a good thing to do beforehand. Prerequisites, again, you must have cleared your part 1 exam. You should require also a microscope for this exam, right? You need to maybe, yeah, that's like I said, you might have to travel. You'll need your passport. Between part 1 and part 2, you would like to give at least 1 year gap, because this is the kind of exam which will require that much time for it, for you to get prepared for it completely. More because it's so new. Everything is so new and different for an IMG, for an international medical graduate who knows nothing about UK. To learn their things, to learn their ways, it will take time, right? You will need time. So that's the recommended gap. But however, if you feel like you're ready in 6 months, by all means you can take the exam, right? So for me, I cleared my part 1, and then I told them that I wanted to do my part 2 in 6 months, and they said that's fine, that's okay. They give you permission for that. They do not mind. But for your own good, you should actually give time and read, and try to just finish it off in one attempt, right? So for doing that, you will require a gap. Okay. Continuing with the exam overview, this will consist of 6 sections. Of course, it's a 2-day exam, so they will take they will do a lot of questioning. It will be a lot of slides. It will include histology, cytopathology. It's only non-gynec cytopathology. Gynec cytopathology is a different specialty altogether. right? So you have non-gynec only. OSPs, we will discuss these also later on. Macros is of course the gross specimens and questions on that. Frozen sections, yes, you will have questions on frozen sections. There will be 6 cases and also a viva with the frozen section exam and long cases, right? So those are the sections in which the exams will be taken, right? And it will be over a period of 2 days, right? And you have to pass in each section. Each of them is going to be marked separately, and you have to clear each one of them. Even if you clear, even if you're not able to clear one, you will have to do the exam all over again, right? So that is what makes this exam very difficult, that it is not an overall pass percentage that you get a pass and you pass the exam, but it's actually more than that, right? You have to pass each section separately, and the margin of error that's allowed is very, very less, because that's what especially in pathology, what they believe is that, you know, this is a specialty where you are not allowed to even make mistakes even in your real life. So you're not allowed to make mistakes even in your exam, right? So you cannot have more than 10 to 15% of the cases in any section wrong, which will come down to very less. So for example, in cytology, you will not be able to make more than one error. In frozen section, you will not be able to make more than one error. So that becomes challenging, right? Because in an exam setting, you are bound to make more mistakes, and it's also different when it's an exam section scenario. So that's why it is more challenging, and that is why it becomes difficult to pass this exam. These are the reasons, right? So because even in one section, if you fail even by 1 mark, you have to redo the exam again, right? That's the problem. Now, as to the registration part of the stock, the General Medical Council registration. Now, this one is again, it's a pain because they require a lot of things, right? They require all these things for you, and when you have submitted all of these things to them, then they will take maybe a month or two, and for them to register you, right? And they will also require you at the end of the day to come down to UK and get all your documents verified by them in person, right? And that is something which you cannot skip. That is something you have to do within 6 months of applying to the GMC. So, and after that only they will consider you registered here, right? So that will also require another round of traveling if you're not in the UK already. Now I will go through all of these separately, but basically I just wanted to tell you here that these are the three which will actually require money as well. The FRCPath results is something which you have already paid for, so this is a result they want you to be passed in both the parts. Passport copy, you must be having them of course already. These three will require more money from your side, and then this is just a list of medical and non-medical experience. It's just like you have to write a list and give it to them. Now, for the FRCPath results, both parts should be cleared, right? They want results of both the parts. Now, what happens is that when you clear part 1, you can give part 2. And when you clear part 2, they will give you a certificate that you have cleared this exam, and then they will take some time for that. They might take 1 to 2 months time to give you the certificate that you have cleared the exam. You will have to wait for that, to finally submit for your GMC registration, right? Passport copy, it's more like an identity check as to who you are, and you just have to make sure that you have one which is not expiring soon for multiple reasons, right? It's easier for you to get your visas and everything if it's not expiring soon. And of course it should have some blank pages. The English test, now this is something which you will require also for your visa, especially if you're applying for some kind of a settlement visa. But some people are exempt from this English test as far as GMC registration is concerned. If you're a national of a country where English is the first and the native language, India and most Asian countries do not come under this, except for I think Singapore or some countries, which is an Asian country and still it's English is the first language. So these are the nations where you will not be exempt from this English test, right? Another thing is if you have done your MBBS from a country which is again a native English speaking country, then again you become exempt. But for most people who are listening to this video, I do not think that you are exempt. So you will have to give a test. Now, what are the tests available? One is called IELTS or IELTS exam, which you have multiple versions of this exam. you will require one of the versions for your visa as well. And for this particular GMC registration, you need to have the academic version. You have to make note of this. You need to have an academic version of the test, right? And this will consist of reading, writing, listening, and speaking. So that will be maybe a 1 day or 2 day test, depending. Like basically they give a reading, writing, and listening exam, and then speaking is taken separately. So depending on when you get your time and slots, you may be able to give them all in one shot. Maybe you have to give in 2 days, but that does not matter too much. What matters is that what they require is that you need to have a score or a band. It's called a band in IELTS exam. So that you need to have a band of at least 7 in each area and an overall score of 7.5, which means you need to have at least 8 in one of these, right? That's around 90%, I would say. 90% marks that you need them, right? So you will have to prepare them well for this, because IELTS is not an easy exam. You will have to prepare for it and give your best, and you have to score this much for the GMC registration. And these scores should be in the same test, of course. That you will have to give. You can give it again, but the scores for all these 4 sections have to be in one test if you for them to consider you. Now, the validity of IELTS results is 2 years. So if you give your exam today, it will be valid for the next 2 years. What you can do is, when you start giving your part 1, maybe you can give your exam, or maybe when you give your part 2, because you will not need it before that. You will not need the IELTS result before your part 2 exam. So once you give your part 2 exam, then you can prepare for your IELTS exam, and then you can give that. So that it remains valid for another 2 years, and hopefully you will clear your part 2 before this validity expires. If in case you have already given it and you have this requirement fulfilled and your 2 years is gone, then you may be able to consider, you may have an alternative route of applying or asking them for a extension. Okay, that they might consider it. You will have to talk to them about it, the GMC people. Now, another test which is also accepted by them is the OET test. Now, in the OET test, you will have to specifically take the medicine version of the test. So this is basically something which is for medical people, right? So this exam will also have speaking, listening, reading, and writing, and the requirement will be in this one. Of course, you have A, B, and other grades. So you will need a grade B in each of the testing area. So you need B, 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 okay, for all of them. And of course, in the same test, it has to be there. And again, the validity is 2 years. So what is the main difference? Both of them have the listening, reading, writing, and speaking. But the problem is that IELTS, the good thing is that OET is basically it's basically more related to medical profession. So everything that you have, like if it's a reading part where you have a comprehension and you have to read and answer the questions, it will include something related to your workplace. Okay, it will have terminologies which is medical related. If you have to write, it will be something like an essay on something which is related to healthcare. Speaking will be something related to healthcare. Listening will be something related to, two doctors talking about a patient or something like that. I did not give this exam OET, so I just know a little bit about it. I do not know exactly how it is, but what people say is that it is easier to score in that, because it is something, the words and everything is something which you use in day-to-day practice, and it is easier to get a BBBB in the first go itself. But the problem with that is that it is a little more expensive exam. It's around twice the fees. The fees is twice that of IELTS exam, right? And the validity remains 2 years for both of them. And of course, this is a more limited thing. It is not taken by everybody in the world. Only medical people will be taking it. So of course, you will have less amount of material, less amount of videos or tutorials on YouTube or and stuff. So it is a little more difficult to prepare for the exam, right? As for IELTS, it's taken by everybody. It is a widely accepted exam, and it's taken by people from all fields. So of course, you have a lot of tutorials, a lot of YouTube videos to help you clear the exam to get a score, a band of 9 or 8. But they still say that the pass percentage is lower. To get that requirement, you need 7,777 in each, and 7.5 overall, which means you need at least 8 in one or two of them, right? So because to get an average of 7.5, you need at least an 8 in at least one of them, right? So again, it depends on you, which you want, which you find more better in your circumstances. But of course, both of them has their pros and cons. And the good thing, one of the pros with IELTS is that it can also be used for your immigration purposes, right? But again, if you're looking for a settlement visa, like I did, it did not help me because IELTS academic version was not accepted for my visa. I had to give in another IELTS exam for my visa. So again, it completely depends on you what you want and how you prepare yourself, but you have to give one of these if you are not exempt. And I would suggest try, you can do this after your FRCPath part 2. That would be the correct time to do this, right? The next thing is certificate of good standing. Now this has to come from the medical council that you're registered or licensed with. Wherever you did your primary medical qualification and you got it registered, then it will be issued from there. Now, if you have registered in more than one council or authority, each one of them will have to give a certificate of good standing. Even though you are not working with them, they will say, or maybe you're not registered with them, or you're not even visited them or their country. They will give you a CGS of recent or past, something like that. Because that you were here working here, or you were registered here, something like that. But then you would need it. Okay, so this will be something which you'll have to really go and talk and find out, and because if you're not there especially, then it might become difficult. So I just want you to be prepared that this will be something which will come in ultimately in your effort of getting GMC registration. Now in India, we used to have an MCI, Medical Council of India, and if you are issued by if you were registered with the MCI, you can apply online on the NMC website. But if you are not registered with them, if you were not registered with the MCI, because it doesn't exist anymore, so you cannot get registered now. So if you were not registered with the MCI before, you have to get it from the state medical council. And if you have registered yourself with more than one state medical council, then you have to get it from all of them. Again, depending on your country and depending on the state and depending on everything, this will again take some money of yours, right? This won't be for free, and it'll take time, and it's valid for only 3 months from the date it's signed. In terms of GMC, that is what they will consider. So you cannot get it done beforehand and sit on it. You will have to get it done once you clear your FRCPath part 2. Only then you can ask for this, right? Only then you have to apply for certificate of good standing from your councils, and they will have to get it, and only then you will be able to submit it to the GMC, because they will want, when they get the certificate at the time of their approval, they want it to be valid, and it should not be more than 3 months old, right? You have to consider that. Now, EPIC verification, that's another headache because it requires a lot of time and money. And this one will be, actually they require an EPIC verification. This is basically something like a it's like a authority or an organization which will verify your MBBS degree and your PG degree. Now your PG degree will not be the PG that we did from India or any other country, but here it will be your FRCPath result, right? So you will have to wait for your FRCPath certificate to come, and then you give it to them, and they will say, yeah, yes, you're right, this is a valid certificate, right? So it's kind of very, I don't know, I don't have a word for it, that you clear your exam from a country and you still have to get it verified, right? Yeah, you have to do that. And you also have to get your MBBS verified, right? So your primary medical qualification or your MBBS, that certificate has to be, it is a complete procedure that you have to get your EPIC registration account done. Even to make an account on this EPIC website, you will have to pay, right? And you have to wait. And once they make your account, then you ask them to verify your qualifications, your MBBS and your PG. Both of them should be verified, and each of them will take some money. Yes, so it is time taking and it's costly, but the good thing is that it is valid for lifetime. So this is something which you can go for it even now. But even if you do it now, you will still have to wait for your FRCPath to to get the certificate for your PG qualification to be verified. But as for your MBBS, yes, you can get it verified now. You can do that and keep it with you. It's valid for lifetime, and it most probably it will be acceptable everywhere, for those countries and for those medical councils which require your these things to be verified, as a mark of, authenticity, that yes, your MBBS degree and your PG degrees are correct and they're not fake. If they require it, they will consider this. So if you want it for yourself, you can get it done. Also, they will require this while you're doing your verification. They will ask your colleges or your universities to send you. They might ask you to the college or university to send the transcripts of your degrees. So be prepared that you will have to communicate with them as well. So this becomes more challenging and difficult for you if you are not in that city or place where you did your MBBS or your PG, because then you will have to do a lot of communication with them. So I just want you to be prepared for that, because all this I thought it was very too much of a hassle, right, for me, and I'm still in the middle of this chaos. So that's why I think I'm a little, yeah, I'm still getting this done. So, and yes, when you get your degree certificate, that must show the date you passed your final exam. So again, if you do not have it in your degree, then make sure you get that from your college or university as well, right? Because they want to know the exact date that you cleared your exam. It should mention a date that you passed your final exam. Now, the last thing that the GMC requires is the work experience and activities that you have done in the last 5 years. Okay, it will include everything, medical and non-medical work, they say, which should also include any clinical attachment that you have done, any unemployment in between, any leaves that you may have taken, or vacations, or even career breaks. Okay, and again, you will have to give details about these as well. So, yeah, so those are the things that is required for the GMC registration. So before I finish, I will just repeat again. Before you begin all these things, know that it is going to cost you a lot of money and a lot of time and a lot of effort from your side, and constant effort. So my advice again is to have a very strong motivation, so that whenever you feel down, there'll be something to pull you back on track, and know about everything in detail, so that you are prepared, and nothing comes to you as a shock. Hmm? I do want to say that everything I said in this video presentation is factual to the best of my knowledge, and they're up to date to the best of what I could have done, and they're based solely on my experience and my understanding about things, of how things go, and how I went through these things. So this was basically just about me. It's just about me. Okay. If you find any discrepancy or any incorrect statement, or if you think that I whatever, if you think there is something wrong with this, please let me know, and I would really be thankful for that. So thank you everybody, and all the best to each one of you. And this is the picture that I had on the first page. This is of the Swansea Bay walkway. This is where I live. That's in Wales in UK. It's a beautiful city, and there on the left corner is my house. Alright, so I will see you guys again in my next video, which I will make on part 1 and part 2. I hope you guys enjoy it. Uh, if you like it, you can share it with the people who you think might benefit from it. Thank you so much, and all the best once again.